Well, I think just to kick things off, introduce yourself and share a little bit about you and how that led to where you are now.
Okay, so I am Candace Carroll. I am an artist. I am a wife. I'm a mom of three, and I have two dogs. And growing up, I was always around art. I would say, growing up, my mom was a big influence on me. She was also an artist. She stayed at home, but she painted in the margins of her life and just made extra money for our family. So it was just always something that I was around, and I always had a notebook and a pen, and I was always scribbling something or sketching something, and that really continued throughout pretty much my whole education. I was always leaning towards the art classes or the creative projects. And then for whatever reason, when I went to college, decided I would be a business major. That lasted about a semester. When I hit econ, it was done. And then I thought, well, you know what? I've always just loved art. I want to be an artist. I'll starve if I have to. So I picked the safest choice, I feel like, for myself at the time, was to be a photographer, because it just seemed like there was a lot of career options. I knew a photographer. I had been doing some internship with him, like photoing weddings and stuff like that. So it seemed like it was a natural progression where I could leave more, like the educational world, and go into an actual job. So that was about 2006. And then in 2008, I got married and continued this portrait photography all throughout the sidelines of my life, making extra money, kind of like my mom did for us growing up. And then it just lost its luster. In school, we were getting our hands wet in the dark room, like, developing real film.
Yeah.
It's going to date me a little bit. Um, and I just kept leaning back to all my painting classes and my ceramics classes and all the things that I really liked that were just more tangible. So I started painting just for myself, really. I had, young kids at home. I was working during the day, and it just started growing from there. It would be nap times originally, and then it would be evenings. And then my husband was a nighttime, police officer. He worked nights. And so, I would have a lot of evenings where the kids were in bed and I would paint. And it just kept growing and growing. And then, on the other side, I'm still working this corporate career as a recruiter. And I would sneak, paints in my desk, and I would paint during my lunch break. My old bosses probably wouldn't be happy to hear that. But, it just gave me the confidence to keep practicing, even when it wasn't a career at that point, but it was something that I looked forward to, and a little bit of a creative outlet for me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's great. Can you walk us through what came next? So you were painting on the side, in the margins, on your lunch break. When did you feel like I need to devote a little bit more time to this, or this is starting to kind of get some legs? It feels a little bit more like a professional business. Like, what did that transition look like?
So it was still kind of a private painting thing that I did for myself. I did it
Uh
for
huh.
gifts for family, for friends. And then 2020 hit, and I got a lot of my day back because I was at home and I wasn't commuting anymore. And so there was just this larger availability of time that I didn't have before. And so from there, I started really painting. We have a barn that I'm in right now. And so I turned the upstairs into a studio.
Uh
My
huh.
husband built it out for me because he wanted me to get all of my crafting and art supplies out of the dining room. And so I just started painting and painting, posting to Instagram. I started a little account with, my family members, and it just kind of grew from there. And I realized, I think that, it could really be something more. So I started a website, and, it wasn't so great in the beginning. I look back and I cringe a little bit, but it was what it was. And I had a lot of support, and I had a lot of, just people willing to ask me to do paintings for them. I used to paint like their houses. I would do watercolors of houses, and it was a guaranteed sell because everyone loves their house.
Right.
But I didn't feel super passionate about those. And then in 2022, I think it was, my job was going back into an office, and everything was shifting a little bit. And it just seemed like the time to really make some changes. I had taken a new job in the meantime that was supposed to be fully at home, and all that was shifting a little bit, and things happened. So I just seemed like it was a good transition point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your current style and how you have found it, how you aren't just doing watercolor houses anymore? Like, how did you work to paint what you're painting now? And how was their reaction along the way too, as you were kind of developing that style?
So I looking back, I definitely see somewhat of a progression. Even from college, I was photoing for a florist as an internship for one of my classes. So
Hmm.
that floral aspect, I guess, has always been there. I just didn't
Uh-huh.
really know to pursue it as like an art subject. And so watercolors from houses led to watercolors of flowers. And then that led to more of like just pursuing acrylics and oils, and just the flexibility I liked that the acrylics gave over the watercolors. Like watercolors are very final, I feel like, there's
Yeah.
not a lot of room for error. If you mess something up, it's not always a happy mistake. And with
Right.
acrylics, I love the layers that I build into things. So things are very layered and textured. It takes me weeks and weeks and weeks to get a painting with, I feel like, ample amount of layers, where I like the interest that it gives. Instead of it just being more of like a flat floral arrangement or whatever. So yeah, flowers have always been there, and then landscapes. I love landscapes. I love the one behind you.
Nice.
The waterscapes speak to me a lot, so that's something that reflects my work. Right now, I'm going back to my roots a little bit of where I kind of started painting for myself, which was more abstract, and loving just the creativity and the freedom that that gives, and trying to tie some of the florals in with it so that it's a little bit of both,
Hmm.
combining some of my loves.
Yeah. How are you thinking about marketing? So I know you've grown on Instagram. You said you were kind of, you started off posting, but what is your strategy now? And like, do you have a strategy? Or are you still like just having fun with it? Kind of what does your marketing look like for you?
It should be more in depth than it is.
We love that.
I have a friend who's like this marketing genius, and she's helped me a little bit along the way with putting some things together for me. But I just feel like my brain isn't organized enough at this point. I have an artist brain, and I'm ADHD. I'm like over here and then I'm over there. So a lot of it has been web based. I have I like to think it's a pretty decent sized email list.
Hmm.
And, that is just, it's been very crucial when, I get shoved to the bottom of the Instagram pit and I can't get out of it. You can always email those people. So I started a newsletter. So a lot of that I feel like is just being responsive to people and communicating. If I get a DM, I'm always replying to it. I feel like it's rude not to. And I hate when
Yeah.
I, take the time to comment to someone and they don't comment back to me. It just doesn't feel very authentic. And I want the person that I am out in the social media world to be who I am as well. So I always try to reply and just have that engagement with people. And I think that that has made everything a little bit more authentic. So it's not
Definitely.
so much a marketing strategy, I would say. I think it's just more trying to be true to myself, but then also, make a career of it along the way.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about your email list. So what are you putting in there? So like what do those emails actually include? What's the cadence of sending them? But then also how are you working to grow it? I mean, you said it's pretty sizable. You also have a pretty sizable Instagram following, I would say. So how did you leverage that and just how in general did you grow your email list?
A lot of it has been, what they call to action.
Yeah.
If you want to be included in, this release, or have early access, giving those little bonuses, because I would have a few things here and there where they would sell out really quickly. And people will say, oh, I missed it. I didn't see it on Instagram. So I've always tried to make that a priority of, if you're on my email list, I want you to know about it first, because one, I want you to check my emails and, not send me to spam, but also just I value that relationship and I value that people would click open and just see what it is. So
Right.
that's kind of where a lot of it came from, was these little free options. One time I think I did like phone lock screens, just so that
Yeah.
people could give me their email address and their contact. And then from there, just newsletters. I'll do recipes or things that are going on in my life, just the basics. I don't get too into it, but how it reflects around art and what I'm working on in my studio, any upcoming launches that are coming, seasonal things that are coming around. So, and then I ask questions sometimes, and then some people actually reply to me and give me some feedback. So,
Yeah, I love that. Well, between juggling all these different things, the marketing, the painting, all that, what does a day or a week in the life look like for you? And how are you managing balancing it all? I mean, I'm sure painting is a priority, but obviously there's a lot of other things you have to do with all of this too.
yeah, I would say once I quit my job and I started painting full time, it was hard to balance everything because, I had this financial number in my head, like I have to hit that number because that's what I was making as a recruiter. Um, and then, it's not as consistent. You're not getting your paycheck every 2 weeks because sometimes you're building
Right.
something up and then you're not going to be paid for 2 months. So, that was hard to get used to. And so in the meantime, I thought I had to be really, really busy and, make like this Amazon artist that, ships things in 2 days and tries to
Right.
stay as productive as possible. And I've learned to just slow down a little bit. It was starting to affect my family, and I'd be up here slaving away in my barn all night when I should be at home, on the weekends and enjoying time with them. So I've set some better hours. I typically work about 9 to 2 in my
Mhm.
studio. And then I'll take my computer inside and get any of my businessy type stuff done, emails or replying and shipping out orders or whatever the case might be, ordering some of my products. So that is a little bit more like, I can do that inside versus out here by myself.
Yeah. No, definitely. I want to get super like technical and practical. So, first off, how are you as like a background in photography, how are you thinking about photography when it comes to your work, Instagram? Like, was there anything you learned then that's helping you now? I mean, I'm sure you just have an eye. But any tips for Instagram or for shooting with your iPhone? Do you use a professional camera? I'd love to just kind of hear your thoughts.
So I have an iPhone that I use about 99% of the time. I recently just purchased another DSLR for better photography.
Hmm.
Um, I do love that it's just a better quality. You can make more of a finesse and more of an art out of your photography versus it just being like, I don't know, I feel like there's something, it's practical using an iPhone, but it's also a bit more informal. And I think naturally my brain kind of takes it a little bit more informally when I'm just snapping a picture with something.
Yeah.
But then I use that for all of my filming and all of my reels and things like that. And then I'll edit them and put everything together. So as far as like composition, I like things to be dynamic. I don't like the stagnant images. I'm always trying to do something from more of like an angle than like, I'm not good at the beautiful flat lays that people do, and they have all their materials and everything is nice and neat and like really pretty, and it doesn't work for me. I don't know. It's not engaging enough. I don't feel like so.
Yeah. That's helpful. I also feel like you probably have really good light in your studio just based off what I
I
see behind you.
I actually have terrible light.
Really? I feel like I just see
Yeah,
this one window.
see these like little windows along the sides.
Uh-huh.
So the morning sun comes through the big window, and then
Yeah.
afternoon sun, I don't have a window for that. So it's
Gotcha.
really, really dark. I did some studio photography out here with one of my photographer friends, and she's like, "This lighting is just awful." I'm like, "I know." So
Well, it shows
every,
what I know. I was like, I was seeing the one window in the space, basically, the one big one.
I wish it was this like beautiful light filled space, but no, it's a little dark up here sometimes.
Well, you're making it work and you have a space. So we're gonna say that's a good
Exactly.
thing.
I'm not complaining. I mean, it's my own space. I can trash and it's dirty. So I just work with it.
Yeah. In terms of growth, what would you say, like what tools or partnerships have really helped you the most? So like has it been Instagram? Has it been that email list? Have you worked with a gallery or designers? Like what do you think has helped you along the way the most, if anything stands out?
I think word of mouth, honestly, has been my best friend because, I started my Instagram account with like 4 people following me. And it still blows me away sometimes. I mean, I'm not a huge account by any means, but that many people actually want to look at my artwork. So I think that that's really cool that it has spread. It inspires me a little bit just to know that I'm not speaking. Sometimes it feels like you're just talking to the wind out there because
Right.
you 4 people see your post, and obviously more people are seeing it. And I don't know. I think a lot of that has just been from word of mouth, and emailing and staying in touch. But I do have a supportive community. I think that that's the biggest thing. I would love to work with designers.
Mhm.
It's kind of like one of those things on my bucket list of, get my pitch email ready and get that out to people. And just it hasn't happened yet. I'm switching over my website to Spotify. It's kind of shaky right now. I just hit go on Tuesday. So
It's
I'm hoping
exciting.
that, yeah, I'm hoping that that gives a little bit more visibility as far as, the SEO goes. And it's such a complicated platform. So I'm
Yeah.
still learning it and trying to figure it out, but, the one I was on before, it was really beautiful, but I don't feel like it was very visible as far as search engines and, just bringing like actual traffic. So those are things I've been working on kind of behind the scenes. And again, I would love to do a gallery. I think I'm still figuring it out. I feel a little like I've gotten my feet wet. This is my second year being full time. And so a
Mhm.
lot of that was hustle, hustle, hustle just to kind of prove myself for a while. And now
Right.
I'm starting to settle into it, I think, and figure out what's next.
Yeah, I feel like the second year is a really nice place to be, or even if it's not the second year, but just like the second phase of being comfortable in your business is really nice because you do have to an extent, kind of hustle in the beginning. But I think that pays off because you can kind of look back and see everything that worked, everything that didn't, everything you liked, everything you didn't, and start to make
Right.
more informed decisions going into the next period. And so I think it's actually it's a really nice period to be in, but it is fun to still be like learning and experience new things and
Right.
experimenting and all of that. So that's really nice.
I think the biggest thing I've taken away so far is for a while I was working on what's going to sell,
Yeah.
and instead of, just cultivating more of this like my highest work. So I have done a couple of collections, but I've also, in the back of my mind, it's, I don't want them to sit here forever. I want them to sell. I want it to be a sellout. If it wasn't going to sell out in the first like hour, I would be a little bit disappointed about it because, we have those sometimes and then sometimes you don't. And
Right.
it's like, what did I do wrong? Why did it work out that way? And so instead I've kind of taken a different approach lately. I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts actually, and just this cultivating of like what actually the art speaks to you and what you bring to it, and like your actual authentic voice, instead of just thinking, if I crank out a bunch of these and put them on my site and they sell. I don't know. It's being a little bit more focused on the craft itself versus the bottom line.
Definitely. And I always think too, I was actually talking to an artist about this yesterday, and she was saying, like, by really focusing on the craft and her work, that bottom line has risen over time because you're finding the collectors that resonate with you versus like running after collectors thinking,
Yes.
chasing the sale. And it is obviously hard when you jump to full time and you want to make a certain amount of money or you need to make a certain amount of money to not fall into that.
Right.
But I think if you can find the balance of like commissions and being aware of what's selling with also like making sure you're devoting a lot of time to developing what you want to create, I think that's the perfect marriage to be able to develop a style that's all your own that, will last for a long time.
Right. And I've had to learn to say no a little bit too, because, if you get a commission request, like, of course you want to paint it, but
Right.
if it's not really your end goal, it's kind of distracting you from what you should be doing and what you should be working towards. So as appreciative as I am for all the opportunities, it's just, it doesn't fit in right now.
Yeah. And I think that's a really hard lesson to learn, but I think it also means you're growing in your business, that you don't feel like the need to say yes to everything. You're starting to see the vision of, okay, this isn't aligned and I need to spend my time on the things that are aligned with my vision. So I think that's great.
Yeah, it's a little freeing.
Definitely. Well, speaking of that, can you share some of your most successful moments? So up to this point, what have just been, in the past 2 years, like just really great moments in your art career?
So going back to the selling out of the collections, I think those are the times when you feel like, okay, yeah, I've got this. Like I'm doing it right. And maybe I priced them a little bit too low for them to sell out so quickly, but it's exciting when people want your artwork and
Right.
they're asking you for it. And so I think those are some of my biggest successes, is just shipping all those paintings out, even though, I hate shipping paintings, but at the same time, it's so rewarding because you work so hard, months go into these collections that I create, and then it's gone, and then I have to start over on something else. But it's a really exciting thing to know that other people are valuing, what you're creating and what you're sending out into the world, because that's a little scary to paint things and then, hope that people see them and then hope that they like them. So I think that's been huge, is just the support and the excitement around it for me.
Yeah. What did those, or we can just talk about one of them, like that collection that sold out, what did it look like? Like how many pieces? What were you painting? Like what was your strategy? I think a lot of artists want to start working in collections, but don't really know the logistics of where to begin.
It's funny. So I went to the grocery store and there was a clearance cart of grocery store flowers. So I brought them all back and I got this big bundle of them and I just arranged them in a vase. And I had this big work studio table. And so I put them in the middle and then I had like all these papers lined up around it and I painted them from every single angle. And then of course the flowers died, so then they start to like take on a life of their own and they all start to look a little differently and the background's changed. And
Yeah.
so I like to work like that as far as my florals go, and most of the floral collections have sold out pretty quickly. I feel like those are a little, I don't know, maybe my audience is just very heavily feminine, female, flower loving people like myself.
Uh-huh.
The landscapes usually sit a little bit while longer. And, I feel like a landscape has to either remind you of something you love or a place. It has to be a little bit more nostalgic, I think, for
Mhm.
some people. And so those have been a little bit less popular. So it's just kind of learning what I think I'm strongest at, and then
Mhm.
maybe pursuing that a little bit more, instead of, I love landscapes and I love them in my own house, but maybe I don't paint them as much.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And I love your technique of buying the flowers and like working your way around the room. I think that's a fun way to tackle that project. Can you touch on, we talked about some of your successes, but just different challenges you faced? Like what's been difficult? What have you had to overcome with running a business?
Okay, that's a lot of stuff. I'm still learning that. It's like taxes. I don't know. Those are really confusing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I hate that. Let's see. As far as learning, I mean, being an artist, it looks really pretty when you see it on the little squares on Instagram, but behind the scenes, there's just so much stuff. I mean, I think I've rebuilt my website like 3 times in the last couple of years, redesigning it or restructuring things. And then 2 months ago, I thought, you know what, I should really just switch my whole platform and go somewhere else. So that's always a challenge because you're having to also be like this web developer on top of being an artist. So
Right.
that's definitely something that I've had to educate myself on. And then marketing yourself. It feels a little, it's difficult to like put your face on things and then, hey, did I mention I'm selling this? Hey, did you know that I have this collection? And they say what, 6 times? You have to say it so many times to get through to people.
Right.
So for me, I'm not like this outgoing extrovert type person in real life, I don't feel like. And so that's hard for me sometimes, is marketing myself
Yeah.
versus, just staying behind the camera and shooting it and posting it out there and just hoping somebody sees it.
Yeah. No, it is hard, and I think it's hard because it is required. I mean, I think you can kind of hide behind the camera, but I think the more you do put yourself out there to an extent, the more success you're gonna have, and so I think it's challenging for most of us, but once you
Yeah.
start doing it and people can you see people relating to you and wanting to learn more and see more from you, it does get easier, I think, but I relate to all of those challenges, like Texas, whew, not fun.
No, no. Well, and I heard somewhere along the way is, think of the accounts that you gravitate towards, and all those people are probably showing their face and you want to engage in their content. So I thought of it more of that way, like talking to a friend versus,
Yeah.
trying to talk to quote unquote followers because, no one wants to be a follower.
Yeah.
But you think of some people that you follow as friends, like about their lives, where they're shopping and what they're up to. And so just being a little bit more candid in that sense versus pushing it out there like as a marketing
Yeah.
type vision.
Yeah, and I think having that mental shift makes it so much easier and makes it actually work better because that's what people want at the end of the day is they just wanna know who you are.
Right.
Um, and so I think it's helpful to just, like, take that pressure off, and I love what you said, I really wanna highlight about thinking about the favorite accounts you follow. I mean, it's a real challenge to think about a favorite account I follow that does not have the
Yeah.
person in it.
Right.
Even, like, big brands, they have, like, faces. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting challenge for people to think about because I think people are like, "Oh, I can definitely do this without showing my face." And it's like, you can, but it's a lot more of an uphill battle, Or at least you just
Yeah.
need to tell your story somehow. People really need to see that because at the end of the day, people really want to support people that they, relate to or see themselves in or are inspired by. And so that's hard to do if you're only showing photos of your artwork?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
they wanna relate to you,
exactly.
and
Um,
I know
oh, go
that's what I
ahead.
look for, so.
Yeah. Well, what do you see next for your business? What's on the horizon? What are you thinking about going into the rest of 2024 and into 2025?
So, I would love, um I'm really excited about some of the things that I'm working on right now, and you might see a few of them soon in the emerging artist
Love it.
when I submit some things for that. I'm really liking the direction that some of my stuff is going right now, which excites me. And in my mind, these pieces could be a little bit more versatile in more people's homes than maybe some of like the brighter florals that I've painted before. So I'm hoping to maybe do like a lookbook or something to send out to designers. I would love to do something, partner with local designers here. I'm just north of Atlanta, so we have tons of them. And I don't know, maybe just see it in more of a like a real environment versus just seeing it on my walls in my studio and then shipping things out. So I would
Yeah.
love to see something like that, come into play. And then potentially, moving into more print work. I do a lot of my prints online. Pretty much if I paint it, it's going to become a print of some sort.
Mhm.
So being able to sell some of the abstracts as prints, I don't have any of those right now. I think that would be cool as well.
Yeah, I think that's all great stuff. And I will love watching all of that. And I'm excited to see what you put in the show. Well, I love to include every episode with a trick or a lesson, a tip, something that you can share that would just benefit our audience, benefit other artists. It's pretty open ended.
I think just, comparison is the thief of joy. And I look at a lot of the artists that I follow, and they are all these amazing, successful women that, they look like they've got their stuff together. And sometimes it's really hard to not compare yourself of, well, I haven't launched a collection in a couple of months. I really should get into that. And just stop comparing yourself to everybody else. I think it really takes away from your creativity. I think it takes away your momentum when you're trying to always keep up. Don't let Instagram get you down. Just keep going. Just keep painting. Like it will come back up. You can tank for a while, and then all of a sudden, I mean, a few weeks ago I opened some gold paint on my feed and I got like 8,000 followers just from like opening gold paint. It was insane.
Yeah.
So you just never know what's going to do it. But just keep moving forward and keep doing the things that excite you when you're painting, not the things that sell. Because they might not be the same thing at the same time, but hopefully those things do end up aligning and you find those people that do appreciate what you're making.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really, really great piece of advice. And this has been filled with so many great anecdotes and pieces of advice. So I really appreciate your time. Can you share how everyone can follow you if they don't already, your website, how they can buy from you and learn more about you?
Yep. So my website is CandaceCarrollArt.com, Carol with two R's and two L's. And then my Instagram is the same, Candace Carroll Art, and Facebook, Candace Carroll Art, and TikTok, Candace Carroll Art.
Love it. I'll have to follow you on TikTok. I'm like new on that platform. So I'm like, don't know what I'm
Same.
doing. I just
Yeah,
repost all my reels.
I do the same thing. I'm still learning how to. It's very different. It's a different vibe. It's flashier and faster, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of my painting process videos are a little bit lost on there because people don't want to watch something for a long period of time. I think they say like 15 seconds max. So it's a lot
Yeah.
shorter attention span.
Yeah. Well, I'll follow you and tune into what you're doing. But thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story and your advice. This has been really fun. So I really appreciate it.